Imagine standing on the edge of a vast, unending desert. You know your destination lies on the other side, but with every step forward, the horizon seems to stretch farther away. The thirst for answers grows unbearable, and you wonder if you've been abandoned in this wilderness. Have you ever felt that way in life? Have you ever prayed for a breakthrough only to be met with silence? Have you waited for a miracle but instead found yourself waiting endlessly? If you have, you are not alone. And let me assure you, silence is not the absence of God, it is often His most profound message. Delays are not denials, they are not punishments. They are not cruel games played by a distant, indifferent creator. No, delays are the sculptor's hands, shaping you into the masterpiece you are destined to become. They are the shadows cast by a radiant light that will reveal itself when the time is perfect. But here's the part most people miss. God's delays are never without purpose. Each second you wait, He is preparing something far greater than you could imagine. You see, we live in an age of immediacy. Fast food, instant messaging, one-click solutions. We expect life to respond to us as quickly as our devices do. But life, and more importantly, God, does not operate on human timelines. His clock is not ours to wind. And while we wrestle with impatience, He is orchestrating something extraordinary behind the scenes. The question is not, why is God making me wait? The question is, what is He perfecting in me while I wait? Consider this. A seed planted in fertile soil does not sprout overnight. It remains hidden, buried in darkness, while its roots grow deep and strong. Without this unseen preparation, the plant could not withstand the storms to come. And so it is with us. The waiting season is where our roots take hold. It is where God fortifies us for the blessings and battles that lie ahead. Think about the great figures of history who faced God's delays. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he led his people to freedom. David was anointed king but spent years in exile before he sat on the throne. Even Jesus himself waited 30 years before stepping into his ministry. Were these delays wasted time? No, they were seasons of preparation, periods of refinement, moments where God perfected the path before them. Here's the truth we often overlook. Delays force us to grow in ways we wouldn't choose on our own. They teach us patience when we want progress. They teach us faith when we want proof. They teach us humility when we want honor. And in this crucible of waiting, God shapes us not just for the destination, but for the journey that will take us there. So if you are waiting today, if you feel lost, forgotten, or unseen, take heart. The delay is not a mistake. It is a divine appointment. God has not forgotten you. He is perfecting the path ahead, clearing the obstacles you cannot see, and building within you the strength to carry the weight of the blessings to come. Remember this: the longer the wait, the greater the promise. The deeper the silence, the louder the revelation will be. Do not despair in the waiting. Do not lose hope in the delay. Instead, trust that what God is doing in this time is far more beautiful, far more intricate, and far more meaningful than you could ever imagine. Now, let us explore 7 powerful signs that reveal how God is perfecting your path through the delays. 1. Closed doors are divine redirections. Have you ever stood before a door you desperately wanted to walk through, only to find it shut tight? You knocked, you prayed, you pleaded, and yet nothing happened. In that moment, frustration takes hold, and doubt begins to whisper in your ear. Maybe this is the end. Maybe I wasn't meant to succeed. But what if that closed door wasn't the end? What if it was a divine redirection, orchestrated to lead you to something far greater? We often see closed doors as failure, but in reality they are opportunities cloaked in disguise. They are a signal from God that the path you've chosen is not the one He designed for you. And isn't it true that hindsight is the greatest teacher? Think back to a time when something you desperately wanted didn't come to pass. At the time it felt like heartbreak, didn't it? But now, looking back, can you see how that closed door protected you from something you weren't ready for, or worse, something that could have harmed you? Here's the powerful truth. A closed door is never a denial of your dreams. It's a divine intervention. God sees the entire picture while we only see a single frame. He knows the dangers, detours, and distractions ahead. When He shuts a door, it's because He is redirecting you to a door that leads to your destiny, not destruction. But let's be honest. When you're in the thick of it, when the job rejection comes, when the relationship falls apart, when the opportunity vanishes, it's hard to see the bigger picture. You feel stuck, stranded in uncertainty. That's when faith must rise. That's when you must trust that the same God who allowed the door to close is the same God who holds the key to your future. Every closed door carries a lesson if you're willing to learn it. It forces you to pause, to reevaluate, to ask yourself, is this what I truly need? Or is there something better waiting for me? Sometimes the plans we make for ourselves are too small, too narrow. We aim for what we think is good, while God is preparing what is best. Take the story of a sculptor chiseling away at a block of marble. To the untrained eye, it might look like he's destroying something, cutting away large chunks of stone. But in reality, he is revealing the masterpiece hidden within. That is exactly what God does when He closes a door. He's removing what doesn't serve your higher purpose. He's stripping away what's unnecessary so the masterpiece of your life can emerge. In moments of rejection, it's easy to question your worth, to wonder if you're not good enough. But hear this, a closed door is never about your inadequacy. It's about God's sovereignty. It's about His perfect timing, His perfect plan. Sometimes the door you want to walk through leads to a place too small for the greatness He has placed within you. Look at the lives of those who have achieved greatness. How many of them faced rejection after rejection, failure after failure, only to discover later that every no was guiding them to their ultimate yes? The closed doors in their lives weren't stumbling blocks, they were stepping stones. They were redirections toward their purpose. They think about a river flowing toward the ocean. Along the way, it encounters rocks and barriers, but it doesn't stop. It doesn't give up. Instead, it finds a new path, carving through the earth, if necessary, to reach its destination. That is what a closed door does. It redirects your flow, guiding you to a path you never knew existed. So the next time you encounter a closed door, don't let it discourage you. Don't let it define you. Instead, let it refine you. Let it fuel your determination, your faith, and your trust in the one who knows the way forward. The door may be closed now, but beyond it lies a future greater than you could ever imagine. And this redirection, it is nothing less than divine. 2. Silence strengthens faith. Silence, it's one of the hardest things to endure. When you've poured your heart out in prayer, when you've asked for guidance, for a sign, and all you're met with is stillness, it can feel like abandonment. It can feel like God has turned away, leaving you to face your struggles alone. But what if that silence isn't a sign of absence, but an invitation? An invitation to trust, to grow, and to strengthen your faith in ways you never thought possible. Silence is not a punishment, it's a process. It's in the quiet, in the stillness, that the greatest transformations take place. Think of the seed buried in the soil. For days, weeks, or even months, it appears that nothing is happening. The ground looks lifeless, motionless. But beneath the surface, in the silence of the earth, the seed is breaking open, sending roots deep into the soil, preparing for the day it will break through and flourish. So it is with us. Silence is the fertile ground where faith takes root. It's where we learn to trust in what we cannot see, to believe in what we cannot yet understand. It's in the silence that we realize faith is not about immediate answers. It's about unwavering trust in the one who holds the answers. But let's be honest, silence can feel suffocating. It can feel like a void of in our doubts and fears. In those moments, the temptation is to take matters into our own hands, to force an answer, to create our own solution. Yet, history shows us that some of the greatest mistakes have been made in haste, in moments where people couldn't bear the silence and acted out of impatience. Consider the story of Abraham and Sarah. They were promised a child, but when years passed in silence, they took matters into their own hands, leading to consequences that reverberated through generations. The silence wasn't God's way of denying his promise, it was his way of teaching them to trust. And when the promise was finally fulfilled, it wasn't on their terms, it was on his, in a way that left no doubt of his power and faithfulness. Silence strengthens faith because it forces us to lean into God rather than our own understanding. It strips away the noise, the distractions, the false assurances we often rely on. It creates a space where we must confront our doubts, our fears, and ultimately, our dependence on something greater than ourselves. Imagine being in a pitch-black room. At first, the darkness feels overwhelming, disorienting. But as you stand there, your eyes begin to adjust. You start to see faint shapes, outlines, a glimmer of light. Silence works the same way. In the beginning, it feels overwhelming, even frightening. But as you sit with it, as you allow yourself to trust in the unseen, you begin to perceive God's presence in ways you couldn't before. Faith is not built in moments of certainty. It is built in moments of silence, when the only thing you have to hold on to is the belief that God is still working, even when you can't see it. Faith is trusting that the silence is not the end of the story, it's the chapter where the foundation is laid for what's to come. Think about the times in your life when you've grown the most. Were they moments of ease, when everything was going smoothly, or were they moments of challenge, of waiting, of silence? Growth happens in the tension, in the uncertainty. It happens when we are stretched beyond our comfort zones and forced to rely on a strength greater than our own. In silence, God teaches us patience. He teaches us to wait with hope, to endure with grace. He teaches us that our worth is not tied to immediate results, but to the steady, unshakable truth that we are his. And sometimes he teaches us to listen, because in the noise of life, we often miss his still, small voice. Silence also allows us to reflect. In the waiting, we begin to see things more clearly. We see the areas of our lives that need growth, the lessons we need to learn, the blessings we've overlooked. Silence is not emptiness. It is a canvas where God is painting something beautiful, stroke by stroke. So when you find yourself in a season of silence, don't run from it. Don't let it fill you with fear or doubt. Instead, lean into it. Embrace it as a time of preparation, of growth, of deepening faith. Remember that silence is not God's way of abandoning you, it's his way of drawing you closer. Faith that is tested in silence emerges stronger, purer, and more resilient. It becomes a faith that can withstand the storms of life, because it is rooted not in fleeting emotions or visible signs, but in the unchanging truth of God's presence and promises. And that kind of faith, that's the kind of faith that moves mountains. 3. Delay builds character. It's easy to despise delays. They frustrate us, test our patience, and often feel like obstacles standing between us and our dreams. But what if the delay isn't an obstacle at all? What if it's the very process required to prepare us for the destiny we're praying for? Delays are not wasted time, they are divine seasons where character is built, resilience is forged, and strength is developed. They are the fire that purifies, the wind that shapes, and the foundation upon which greatness is constructed. Think of an uncut diamond. Before it becomes the dazzling stone admired for its brilliance, it must endure intense heat and pressure deep within the earth. Without this process, it remains just another piece of rock. Similarly, when we face delays, we are placed in the crucible of growth, where our character is refined and strengthened. The waiting season may feel uncomfortable, even unbearable at times, but it is in this very discomfort that the best parts of us are formed. Let's face it, we all want the rewards, the breakthroughs, the successes, but rarely do we want the process. Yet it's the process that determines whether we're truly ready to handle the blessings we're asking for. Imagine receiving a promotion at work without the skills to manage the role, or entering a relationship before developing the emotional maturity to sustain it. The delay is God's way of ensuring that when the blessing arrives, you're not only ready for it, but capable of keeping it. In a world that values instant gratification, delays often feel like failure. But in truth, they are the times when God is working on the inside, shaping our character to match the magnitude of the blessings He has in store. A strong character doesn't happen overnight. It's built through perseverance, patience, and trust. And these qualities are developed in the waiting season, not in the moments of instant success. Take a moment to reflect on the great figures of history. Joseph, for example, spent years in slavery and prison before becoming the second most powerful man in Egypt. Those years were not wasted, they were seasons of preparation where his character was tested and proven. Could he have handled the responsibility of saving nations if he hadn't first endured betrayal, hardship, and waiting? Unlikely. The delay was not a punishment, it was the training ground for his destiny. Similarly, when we face delays, it's often because God is working on us, preparing us for something far greater than we can imagine. Maybe He's teaching us patience because the journey ahead will require endurance. Maybe He's building humility so that we don't let success go to our heads. Or perhaps He's strengthening our faith so that when the storms come, and they will come, we won't falter. Delays also reveal who we truly are. When everything goes according to plan, it's easy to remain positive and confident. But when life doesn't unfold as expected, when prayers seem unanswered and dreams are put on hold, that's when our true character emerges. Do we give up? Do we blame others? Or do we press on, trusting that the delay has a purpose? One of the most overlooked benefits of delay is that it teaches us gratitude. When we receive something immediately, we often take it for granted. But when we've waited, prayed, and persevered, the blessing is sweeter, and our appreciation for it is deeper. We recognize the value of what we've received because we've endured the process required to obtain it. Delay also builds resilience. Life is unpredictable, full of challenges and setbacks. The waiting season equips us to handle these difficulties with grace and strength. It's in the delay that we learn how to navigate disappointment, how to maintain hope in the face of adversity, and how to keep moving forward when every fiber of our being wants to quit. Imagine a tree planted in a stormy region. The constant winds may seem like a threat to its growth, but they actually force the tree's roots to grow deeper, anchoring it firmly in the ground. The tree becomes stronger, more resilient, able to withstand storms that would topple others. That's what delays do for us. They force us to dig deeper, to find strength we didn't know we had, and to develop a character that can withstand the storms of life. And let's not forget, delay builds trust not just in God, but in ourselves. When you've waited and persevered, when you've seen how the delay shaped you and prepared you, you gain a confidence that can't be shaken. You begin to trust that no matter what comes your way, you have the strength, the patience, and the faith to handle it. So, when you find yourself in a season of delay, don't resist it. Don't despise it. Embrace it as a time of growth, a time when your character is being built in ways that will serve you for a lifetime. Remember, the greater the delay, the greater the destiny. And in this waiting season, God is not just preparing the blessing for you, He's preparing you for the blessing. For God removes what you don't need. Life has a way of attaching unnecessary weight to our journey. Over time, we accumulate habits, relationships, distractions, and mindsets that instead of propelling us forward, hold us back. When we ask God to guide our lives, one of the first things He does is begin the process of removal. He strips away what is not essential, what doesn't align with His purpose for us. At first, this can feel unsettling, even painful. But what if the things you're clinging to are the very things keeping you from stepping into your destiny? Imagine trying to climb a mountain with a backpack full of stones. Each step becomes harder, the weight more unbearable. God, in His infinite wisdom, sees the stones you're carrying, the fears, the toxic relationships, the doubts, and the misplaced priorities. And in His love, He begins to remove them, not to harm you, but to free you. The process of removal is not punishment, it's preparation. It's about lightening your load so that you can climb higher and move faster toward the life He has planned for you. But let's be real. Letting go is hard. We often find comfort in the familiar, even if it's not good for us. A toxic friendship may be draining your energy, but because you've known the person for years, you hesitate to cut ties. A bad habit may be slowing your growth, but it feels too ingrained to let go. God's process of removal often confronts these attachments head-on, forcing us to release what we thought we couldn't live without. Think about the pruning of a tree. To the untrained eye, it might seem harsh, even destructive, to cut away healthy branches. But a gardener knows that without pruning, the tree cannot grow to its full potential. The same is true for us. God removes the branches in our lives that are taking energy but not producing fruit. These may be distractions, relationships, or even opportunities that, while seemingly good, are not aligned with His greater plan for us. This process can be confusing because from our perspective, the things God removes might seem necessary or even beneficial. Perhaps it's a job you thought was your dream, a relationship you were deeply invested in, or a plan you worked hard to achieve. When these things are taken away, it's natural to feel lost, to question why God would remove something you valued. But His perspective is far greater than ours. He sees what lies ahead, the obstacles we can't yet see and the blessings we're not yet ready for. Consider the story of Jonah. When Jonah tried to run from God's calling, he found himself on a ship in the middle of a storm. The sailors, in their desperation to save the ship, began throwing cargo overboard. What they discarded may have been valuable, but in the moment it was weighing them down, threatening their survival. Sometimes God does the same in our lives. He throws overboard the things that are weighing us down, even if we don't recognize their weight. Another powerful example is the life of Joseph. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and thrown into prison, Joseph endured years of what seemed like loss and removal. But each step in his journey was a part of God's plan to position him for greatness. God removed him from his family, not to punish him, but to prepare him to save them. The same is often true for us. What feels like loss is often God's way of making room for something far greater. One of the hardest parts of this process is trusting that God's removals are for our good. When He takes something away, it's because He has something better in store. But in the moment, it's hard to see that. It's hard to believe that the relationship ending, the opportunity closing, or the door shutting is actually part of His plan. Yet time and again, those who trust Him find that what He removes, He replaces with something infinitely better. And it's not just about external things. God also removes what is within us that doesn't serve His purpose. He strips away pride, fear, bitterness, and doubt. He breaks down the walls we've built around our hearts, walls that keep us from experiencing His love and sharing it with others. This internal pruning is often the most challenging because it requires us to confront parts of ourselves we'd rather ignore. But it's also the most rewarding because it leads to true transformation. As this process unfolds, it's important to remember that God's timing is perfect. What He removes today, He replaces in His time. And what He replaces is always better, always more aligned with who we are meant to be. The removal may feel like loss in the moment, but in hindsight, it becomes clear that it was the doorway to freedom. So, if you find yourself in a season where things are being stripped away, whether it's relationships, opportunities, or even old versions of yourself, take heart. This is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of something greater. God is removing what you don't need, not to leave you empty, but to make space for the fullness of His blessings. Trust the process, even when it hurts. The hands that remove are the same hands that restore. 5. The right time brings the right blessings. Timing is everything. You may have heard that phrase before, but have you ever stopped to consider just how true it is? In our rush to achieve, to succeed, and to claim the blessings we feel are rightfully ours, we often overlook the fact that the right blessing at the wrong time can be more harmful than helpful. God's timing is never early, never late. It is always perfect. And while we may struggle to see the bigger picture, His timing ensures that what we receive is not only good but also aligned with the purpose He has for our lives. Imagine receiving a gift you've longed for, a job, a relationship, or a dream come true, only to realize you weren't ready to handle it. The weight of the blessing could overwhelm you, the responsibility could crush you, or the opportunity could slip through your fingers because you lacked the preparation to seize it fully. This is why God often delays what we desire. He isn't withholding the blessing to punish you. He's ensuring that when it arrives, you're ready to receive it, embrace it, and steward it well. Think of an archer drawing back an arrow. The delay in releasing the arrow isn't hesitation, it's intentional preparation. The archer knows that the right release at the right moment ensures the arrow hits its target with precision and power. In the same way, God's delays are not a sign of neglect or indifference. They are His way of drawing you back, refining your aim, and ensuring that when He releases you into your purpose, you hit the mark. But let's be honest, waiting is hard. Our human nature craves instant gratification. We live in a culture that celebrates speed, fast results, quick fixes, and instant success. Yet what is gained quickly is often lost just as fast. True blessings require time, not only to mature but also to teach us the lessons we need to sustain them. God's timing isn't just about delivering the blessing, it's about developing you into the person who can carry it. Consider the story of David. He was anointed as king while still a shepherd boy, but he didn't ascend to the throne immediately. Years passed, and during that time he faced trials, rejection, and adversity. Why? Because God wasn't just preparing the throne for David, He was preparing David for the throne. The waiting season wasn't wasted time, it was sacred time. It was in those years of delay that David developed the courage, humility, and faith he would need to lead a nation. This pattern repeats itself throughout history. Look at Joseph, who endured years in slavery and prison before rising to power in Egypt. Look at Moses, who spent 40 years in the wilderness before leading his people to freedom. Even Jesus himself waited 30 years before beginning his public ministry. These delays weren't accidents, they were divine appointments. Each moment of waiting was a step in the process of preparation. So why does the right time matter so much? Because blessings given prematurely can become burdens. A young bird forced to fly before its wings are strong enough will fall. A fruit plucked before it ripens will lack sweetness. And a life rushed ahead of God's timing will often collapse under the weight of its own unpreparedness. God's timing not only protects us but also ensures that our blessings have the maximum impact. The right time brings the right people into your life, those who will support you, encourage you, and walk with you on your journey. The right time opens the right doors, opportunities that align with your purpose and propel you forward. And the right time allows you to be in the right state of mind, filled with gratitude, wisdom, and readiness to embrace what God has for you. But how do we endure the waiting? How do we trust in God's timing when everything in us screams for action? The answer lies in faith. Faith that God knows what He's doing even when we don't. Faith that He is working behind the scenes, orchestrating every detail for our good. And faith that His timing, though often different from our own, is always perfect. In the waiting season, God is often more interested in what He's doing in you than what He's preparing for you. He uses this time to strengthen your character, deepen your faith, and align your heart with His. He knows that the right blessing at the right time will not only bless you but also bless those around you. So, if you're in a season of waiting, don't lose heart. The delay is not a denial. The silence is not indifference. It's God's way of ensuring that when your blessing comes, it will be everything you need and more. Remember, the right time brings not only the right blessings but also the capacity to fully appreciate and steward them. Trust in the process. Trust in His timing. Because when the time is right, what you receive will be worth every moment of the wait. 6. Waiting reveals true desires. Waiting is one of life's greatest teachers. It slows us down, challenges our patience, and forces us to confront the things we often try to avoid. But one of the most profound lessons waiting offers is its ability to reveal the true desires of our hearts. In the stillness of waiting, we begin to see what really matters, what's worth pursuing, and what we might have been chasing for the wrong reasons. Waiting strips away the superficial and unveils the deeper truths about our lives, our dreams, and our connection to God. When life delays your plans, it's natural to feel frustration, even despair. You wonder why the doors you've knocked on remain closed, why the prayers you've whispered seem unanswered. But waiting is not a punishment. It's a process. It's in the waiting that you discover whether the things you're pursuing are rooted in fleeting emotions or in lasting purpose. You begin to ask yourself, do I truly want this, or am I seeking it because the world says I should? Is this dream aligned with God's will, or is it a reflection of my own ambition? Think about it. When something is delayed, you have time to reflect. That reflection often reveals whether your desires are born out of faith or fear, out of love or insecurity. A rushed decision rarely allows for this kind of introspection. Waiting forces you to dig deep, to wrestle with your motives, and to refine your understanding of what you truly want and why. Consider the Israelites wandering in the wilderness. They had been freed from slavery in Egypt, but their journey to the promised land was far from immediate. For 40 years they wandered, and in that time their true desires were revealed. Some longed to return to Egypt, preferring the familiarity of bondage to the uncertainty of freedom. Others learned to trust in God, understanding that their deepest desire wasn't just the land, but the relationship they were building with their Creator along the way. This is the gift of waiting. It reveals whether your heart is focused on the blessing or the one who blesses. Too often we become so fixated on the outcome that we forget the purpose of the journey. Waiting redirects our focus, reminding us that true fulfillment doesn't come from external achievements, but from a life aligned with God's purpose. Waiting also tests the endurance of your desires. If something fades during a season of waiting, it may not have been worth pursuing in the first place. But if the desire persists, if it grows stronger, deeper, and more refined, that's often a sign that it's aligned with God's will for your life. The waiting season becomes a refining fire, burning away distractions and leaving only what truly matters. Imagine planting a seed. You water it, nurture it, and wait for it to grow. If you dig it up every day, anxious to see progress, you'll kill the very thing you're trying to cultivate. The same principle applies to your desires. Waiting teaches you to trust the process, to nurture your dreams with patience and faith rather than trying to force them into existence prematurely. Think about a sculptor chiseling away at a block of marble. The process takes time, and every strike of the chisel removes excess material, revealing the masterpiece within. Waiting does the same for our desires. It chisels away the superficial, the unnecessary, and the selfish, leaving behind the pure, authentic desires that align with God's plan for us. But waiting doesn't just reveal your desires, it also deepens your understanding of them. As you wait, you gain clarity. You begin to see not just what you want, but why you want it. Are you chasing success to prove something to others, or are you pursuing it to fulfill a calling? Are you seeking a relationship out of loneliness, or are you preparing yourself for a partnership that glorifies God? Waiting gives you the time and space to ask these questions and to align your desires with God's purpose. It's in this alignment that the real magic happens. When your desires are rooted in faith and purpose, the waiting season transforms from a period of frustration to a period of preparation. You begin to see the delay not as a barrier but as a bridge, leading you closer to the person you're meant to be and the life you're meant to live. Even the act of waiting itself reshapes your desires. As you spend time in prayer, reflection, and trust, you may find that your original desires evolve. You may let go of things you once thought were essential and discover new dreams that resonate more deeply with your soul. This is the beauty of waiting. It doesn't just reveal what you want, it helps you understand who you are. So if you find yourself in a season of waiting, embrace it. Use this time to reflect, to pray, and to refine your desires. Trust that the waiting is not wasted and that the desires God places on your heart during this time are the ones worth pursuing. Remember, the best things in life are not the ones we rush into, but the ones we prepare for with patience, faith, and purpose. 7. God's plans are always bigger. Have you ever set your heart on something, an opportunity, a relationship, or a goal, and felt crushed when it didn't work out? It's a common experience. We pray, plan, and push, convinced we know what's best for our lives, only to find our path blocked or redirected. In those moments, it's easy to feel disheartened, even betrayed. But what if the closed door wasn't the end, but the beginning of something far greater? What if God's plans, though different from our own, were so much bigger, so much better than anything we could imagine? This is the truth about God's plans. They are always bigger, bigger than our limited vision, bigger than our immediate desires, bigger than the circumstances we find ourselves in. Yet understanding this requires faith. Faith that what seems like a setback is often a setup for something extraordinary. Consider this: we see life as a series of moments, a collection of days and years that shape our experiences. But God sees the entire picture from beginning to end. He sees the intricate tapestry of your life, each thread woven with purpose and intention. While you might be focused on one small square of the canvas, God is creating a masterpiece. The plans He has for you are not confined to what you can see or understand. They stretch far beyond your current circumstances, into a future filled with possibilities you haven't even considered. One of the challenges we face is that our plans are often shaped by fear, doubt, or limited understanding. We aim for what feels achievable, what seems safe. But God's plans are not confined by human limitations. He doesn't think in terms of what's probable. He operates in the realm of the impossible. He sees the potential in you that you don't yet see in yourself, and His plans are designed to bring that potential to life. Take the story of Abraham. God promised Abraham descendants as numerous as the stars, yet Abraham and Sarah were old and childless. From a human perspective, the promise seemed impossible. But God's plans weren't limited by their circumstances. When the time was right, Sarah gave birth to Isaac, and through their lineage, nations were born. God's plans for Abraham were far bigger than he could have imagined. The same is true for us. When something doesn't go according to plan, it's easy to think we've failed or that God has forgotten us. But often, what feels like failure is God's way of redirecting us towards something greater. A missed opportunity may be God's way of steering you toward a door you wouldn't have chosen on your own. A painful ending may be the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with blessings you couldn't have anticipated. Think about Joseph, who was sold into slavery by his own brothers. From the outside, it looked like his life was over. Yet every step of his journey, slavery, imprisonment, and eventual rise to power was part of God's plan to position him to save not only his family but entire nations. What Joseph endured wasn't meaningless suffering, it was preparation for the extraordinary purpose God had for his life. Here's the truth: God's plans are not just about you. They are about the impact you will have on others. His plans are designed to bless you and make you a blessing to those around you. Sometimes, the detours and delays you experience are not about withholding something from you, but about aligning you with the people, places, and opportunities that will allow you to fulfill your purpose. God's plans also stretch beyond what we think we want. We often aim for comfort and convenience, while God aims for growth and greatness. Comfort keeps us where we are, but growth requires us to step into the unknown, to face challenges and to trust that God is working even when we don't understand how. His plans are designed not just to give you what you want, but to shape you into the person He created you to be. Imagine building a small house, only for God to come along and say, "I'm not building a house, I'm building a city." That's the scale of God's plans. While we focus on what feels achievable, He is preparing us for something immeasurably more. This is why delays and detours are often part of the journey. They're not meant to frustrate you, they're meant to prepare you for what's to come. But trusting in God's bigger plans requires surrender. It means letting go of the need to control every outcome and trusting that His ways are higher than our ways. It means believing that the closed doors, the redirections, and even the hardships are part of a plan that is far greater than anything we could design on our own. So, the next time you feel discouraged because things aren't going according to your plan, remember this: God's plans are always bigger. Bigger than your doubts. Bigger than your fears. Bigger than the obstacles in your path. Trust that He is working, even when you can't see it. Because when His plans unfold, they will exceed your wildest dreams. And when that moment comes, you'll look back and realize that every detour, every delay, and every challenge was worth it. As we've journeyed through the truths of God's delays, His divine redirections, and the ways He prepares us for greater things, one resounding truth emerges: God's timing is never wrong. Every closed door, every season of waiting, every moment of silence is a purposeful thread in the intricate tapestry of your life. What may seem like a pause or even a setback is God working behind the scenes, aligning your path with His perfect plan. Understand this: God's delays are not denials. They are a sign that He's preparing you for something far greater than you can imagine. The pruning, the refining, the waiting, it's all designed to bring out the best in you, to equip you for the blessings ahead, and to shape you into the person He created you to be. So, as you leave today with these truths in your heart, I encourage you to embrace the waiting seasons of your life. Don't resist them, and don't despair. Trust that every moment is part of a divine process. Trust that God's plans are always bigger, His timing is always perfect, and His love for you is boundless. Whatever season you find yourself in, whether you're waiting for answers, healing, opportunities, or clarity, remember, you're not waiting alone. God is with you, working in ways you cannot yet see. Hold on to your faith, keep moving forward, and believe that the best is yet to come. You are being prepared for something extraordinary. And when God's plan for your life is revealed, you'll see that every delay, every challenge, and every moment of waiting was worth it. Keep trusting. Keep believing. Your breakthrough is on its way.